half or one more than half for this particular mission? Of terms.
I see a couple people have joined by phone. I don't know if either of them are committee members. I see Bridget now. Bo, Bill. So there's 4 of us that I can see. Also expecting Kristen. And I didn't hear from anyone that they weren't going to make it of the remaining 8. So
Shirley might not make it.
okay. I mean, is there, if we're not taking a vote on something?
It would just be the minutes.
Oh, the minutes. Well, maybe we can push the minute approval back. Although I would like for everybody to be here to hear from Reagan and, is it Reagan? Okay, Reagan and Kelly.
Oh, Angela's here now, so either way we're good.
Okay, well, good. Well, then it's 3:32, so we could go ahead and kick off. Welcome everybody to the first Climate Protection Steering Committee meeting of 2023. I hope everybody had a good holiday and a good little break, and excited to get started again this year. So thanks to everybody for being here today, and including community members. I guess, let's go ahead and start with a roll call. Marlene, can you help with that?
Yes, I can do that. All right, I got Robin.
Here.
Thomas. Angela.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Bridget.
Here.
Kristen. Bo.
Here.
And Shirley. I didn't hear Thomas or Kristen or Shirley. That's 3 out of 8. All right, so we have 5. So we have quorum.
All right, great, thank you. So our first item is to approve the October 2022 minutes. Is there any discussion around the minutes first?
I move we approve.
Great, can I get a second?
Second.
Seconds.
Okay, all in favor of approving the October 22 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next up, we are excited to have 2 new Office of Environmental Quality staff on board. So we wanted to give them a little bit of time to introduce themselves, and also give the committee members a chance to also introduce yourselves to the new employees. So Kelly, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely. Can you
or Laura, do you want to say anything first? I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say first, Andy apologizes that he cannot be here. He had some unexpected medical leave that he had to take, but he will be back with us next week. And so I'm going to be facilitating the meeting today, and I'm actually really excited to pre-introduce Kelly and Reagan, who are new staff members in our office. And there you go. And now I will let you guys kick it off.
Robin, would you like me to begin?
Yes, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. My name's Kelly Herman. I'm your new Sustainable Communities Coordinator. I'm really excited about this role, really excited about the potential that we have to reach out to the public and our community and really get the climate protection and resiliency plan in the community's hands and ever evolving and growing towards our goals. I wanted you to know that I come from over 13 years of experience specializing in environmental compliance and community engagement. I initially started here in Kansas City working for KC Water. I was a senior environmental officer for them in 2021. And I primarily manage the fat, oil, and grease program and also their environmental inspectors. And one of the things I was working on, and it really led to understanding and learning the city's communities, is verifying grease traps and grease interceptors and sampling manholes. That's important because I was 100% public facing in that position. So it allowed me to learn our KC community and our neighborhoods really well before applying for this position. And that's important because I came from Springfield, Missouri. Prior to that, I was in I was in education and outreach for the city of Springfield stormwater quality division. And prior to that, I was a stormwater technician. And I just kind of squished those two together because I was at the city for around 7 years. And I did all things MS4 compliance. So that's all coordination with the designers and developers for developing SWIPs, reviewing designs and educating contractors, developing best management practices, as well as engaging in the community for all of our public outreach and participation. So like stuff like that involves our pollution campaign, which is something I'm kind of proud of, to educate the public about pet waste removal and pickup. Also, everything from watershed festivals to running their Adopt a Stream program. So it was a lot of community engagement and professional development. And prior to that, I worked at James River Basin Partnerships. That's my not-for-profit arm, and working with members and community for just protecting the James River watershed, and developing programs that connect all people in our city with our precious river and water resources. That's a little bit about my background. And when I last talked to Robin last week, she mentioned, telling everyone why I was interested in this position. And I applied for this position because I am really excited to how much it compares to my time spent in James River Basin Partnership that has a really strong community advocacy support is really the main focus. And so it really brings me back to, I feel like, my roots and why I'm so excited to be, really an environmental professional is always working with the public to help people understand their impact on the environment and how our actions are really meaningful when it comes to environmental protection and climate change. Robin, was there anything else you'd like for me to cover?
No, that was
Okay.
great. Thank you
Okay,
so
excellent.
much. We're so
Oh,
glad you're here.
I forgot to mention that I do have a master's degree. It's called a professional science master's from Missouri State University and undergraduate in biology. I thought that could be important to know too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Reagan, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Megan Tokus. I think I know a handful of you on the call, but nice to meet you, those of you that I don't. I'm the new sustainability analyst for the Office of Environmental Quality. I'm very excited to be here. I will be managing the benchmarking program is sort of the main thing, but then I will also be taking on pieces of the climate protection plan to sort of help with benchmarking, or not benchmarking, but just analytics in general, understanding sort of where we're at and where we can be, and hopefully chasing people down and sort of understanding the kind of work that we are getting done, aren't getting done, and how we can do it better. I'm also on the board of Heartland Conservation Alliance. I work with them a lot to, yeah, with Jerry. I work with them on a lot of different projects, both just generally in like volunteering, but one of the things that we're working on there is carbon crediting. We've been a part of conversations about that, so I'm hoping to sort of use both this role and that role to sort of tie things together and maybe start carbon crediting here in Kansas City. Would be a really cool thing, maybe, if it goes right. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. I also, before this, I worked with Christina Hoxie at Hoxie Collective, which is a small neighborhood planning organization here in Kansas City. So I've worked in quite a few neighborhoods here. Before that, I graduated from K-State with a master's in regional and community planning. Go Cats. I think that is it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Reagan. It's great to see OEQ get some 2 new people on board since just our last meeting. So that is awesome. So why don't we just have everybody on the committee go around real quick and just introduce yourselves so they kind of have a sense of who's on the committee. And so I'll go first. I'm Robin Ganal. I'm the chair. I'm live in the 4th district, and I'm a volunteer with Mothers Out Front Kansas City. So I'm here to kind of be a voice for kids on the climate committee. And I'll pass it over to Bridget because you're the one I see next.
Perfect. I'm Bridget Sanderson. I live in the 5th district. I recently changed roles, so I run a nationwide coalition that works on transportation issues. Mostly zero emission transportation issues, but we also work on ports program that's coming out. Formerly science background. Before that, I was a soil scientist for about a decade, a lot of advocacy. So I'm happy y'all are on the team. Oh, Robin, do you want me to do it?
Yeah, if everybody could just pass it to somebody.
Okay, Bo, how about you go next?
All right, I'm Bo Marine. I'm the business manager of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 124 here in Kansas City. So it's basically what I do every day with labor and jobs all over, from the data centers to the battery plants to Chief Stadium, everything you can think of. So and let's see, oh, I got to pass it on. Rachel, you're up.
I think you're on mute, Rachel. I can't hear you. But
You're not on mute, but it may not be going through your headphones. But she's not on the CPSC, I think is what she's trying to say.
Well, I screwed that up. I'm sorry.
yeah.
That's okay. And
who else? Angela.
Hello, are you able to hear me okay? Okay, sweet. My name's Angela Crawford. I live in the 4th district. I also work in the 4th district, and I work for the Builders, a chapter of the AGC, which represents commercial building here in the Heartland.
Do you want to pass it to somebody?
I do. How about Kristen? I think I saw Kristen jump on. Oh yeah, there she is. Hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Riot with Bridging the Gap, and we are a nonprofit group located in the West Bottoms and serving mostly the KCMO Metro, but we also do work on the other side of state line We are an urban forestry group. We do prairie and glade restorations from remnant lands that have never been plowed or grazed. We manage the city of KCMO's drop-off recycling centers, and we do water and energy efficiency work in residential households. And I would like to pick Bill Griffith, my buddy there.
Thank you, Kristen. Bill Griffith. I'm a resident of the 4th District. Background is solar project developer, doing some lobbying for renewable energy in the state of Kansas over in Topeka, and background also in dealing with electric utilities and gas utilities as far as renewables, energy efficiency, things like that. I believe that's everyone, isn't it, Robin?
I think so.
We have Kim. Kim is here.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Kim Winslow. I work with Evergy. Ellen Fairchild, I think most of you know that she retired at the end of last year. And so we are working just on the reappointment for me to the CPSC. So not officially a member, but again, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Kim. And Kim, by the way, was a volunteer for many years at Bridging the Gap when we had Keep Kansas City Beautiful. Our litter abatement program was really active. So her work on sustainability goes way back.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. And maybe just real quickly, I mean, just my scope at Evergy. So I lead a team that looks at our programs, how our customers are utilizing energy. So my team's responsible for our energy efficiency programs, electrification. So focusing on how we can accommodate customers as they're adopting electric vehicles, battery storage, and demand response. So I think a lot that definitely crosses over to this team, and just looking forward to being a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on then to our next agenda item, which is the tree preservation ordinance, which Kristen has graciously agreed to give us some background and update on. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and forgive me for not having slides, but it was actually a conscious decision not to do that today. The tree ordinance that we're going to talk about has not even been through the Planning Commission yet, let alone in front of City Council. So it's still a little bit in progress, but I wanted to give everybody kind of the background and the status for where we are with that. So about 4 years ago, in 2018, several of us co-led the development of an urban forest master plan for Kansas City. And at that time, most cities in America that are Kansas City size already had one. So we were kind of late to the party to have an urban forest master plan. We hired a group called the Davy Group that has done urban forest plans for cities like Pittsburgh and Cleveland and many others. And they are considered national experts on this. And they led us through a planning process that included a group that we called the Tree Champions, which was 40 or 50 people from around Kansas City who were just interested members of the public who learned about what the issues relating to our city tree canopy are and what we can all do about it. So I could give you a whole presentation on the Urban Forest Master Plan, but I won't because it's on the Parks website under Natural Resources. If you go to KC Parks, I believe it is, and you drop down to the bottom, Natural Resources, you'll see the Urban Forest Master Plan. But it really even shows what tree coverage is by neighborhood in Kansas City, Missouri. So for example, you might be surprised to hear that the Crossroads has one of the lowest tree canopy coverages in the entire city. We also learned that about 60% of Kansas City's forest is in fair to poor condition. And we knew already before we even underwent this plan that we were losing a lot more forest than we're planting on an annual basis, just because we don't have that much budget to spend on it in Kansas City. And it's appropriate here to remind everybody that Kansas City, Missouri has a geographic footprint that's as big as New York or San Francisco, but only 1/40th of the tax base for programming to pay for infrastructure, things like forest. So in that whole process of looking at the urban forest master plan, one of the things that we talked about and was recommended in the plan, which was passed in 2020 by City Council, is the idea of a protective tree ordinance. So please don't do this, but just know that you could get away with it if you wanted to go to any public right-of-way in Kansas City and saw the trees down. There would be nothing on the books that would keep you from doing that. So we do not have a protective tree ordinance at all. Many other cities do. And so after the passage of the Urban Forest Master Plan, we convened a group which includes Sarah Crowder from Bridging the Gap, who's our forestry director, and she is a professional forester and also an arborist. And then 2 or 3 other city arborists, and Patty Knoll, who was retired from city planning, but is really knowledgeable about writing ordinances. And so that group has been working for 3 or 4 years now to come up with our ordinance. And the ordinance is number 220961. And I'm going to actually type that into the chat. And as it stands today, this is still a work in progress. It's to go back in front of the Planning Commission, the City Planning Commission, on the morning of February 7th, which is a Tuesday. And this ordinance does not apply to residential property. It applies to commercial and industrial development, because that's where the larger swaths of trees get taken down in the course of development. So according to the ordinance as it stands today, if you have 1 acre, you have to have at least 1 acre of contiguous trees. And that would be, if you're looking down on an acreage from a bird's eye view, you could draw a circle, a contiguous circle around a patch of trees that would be the equivalent of 1 acre or more. Then the ordinance kicks in. So smaller patches of trees do not get addressed by this. So it could be 1 acre, but it could be 10 acres, but the ordinance kicks in at the 1 acre contiguous point. The way what we arrived upon is a formula by which developers would determine how much they have to pay to cut down those trees. And the formula is still in the works, but in general, it assumes 300 caliper inches of trees in an acre, in a healthy forest acre. So if there would be 1 inch caliper, that fat of a trunk, there would be 300 trees on that acreage. If 2 inch caliper, there'd be 150 trees on that acreage. So that is a healthy standard of a mature forest area. And we consulted with Missouri Department of Conservation on that, et cetera. So what the developers are asked to pay, or anyone just destroying that amount of trees, would be a 35% of the replacement value of those caliper trees. So if you do the math, it's 105 caliper inches is what they have to pay for if they cut down 300. Are you guys with me? Give me is that making sense? Okay, good. So this gets into fairly big money fairly fast, and is a hard pill for the development community to swallow. Going from 0, they don't have to pay anything today when they go in and cut down a large stand of forests, and they will tell you for many, many, many of their projects, they have to cut down or grade most everything on a development site. So oftentimes they're not able to salvage, and they have left us in no doubt about that. But this very quickly gets into a lot of money because the standard is approximately $285 per caliper inch to replace those trees. Okay, so 105 tree caliper inches per acre times 285. I'm not going to do that right while because I don't want to get my calculator out, but you can do that really quickly. So it ends up being quite a hefty amount of money pretty fast. And the developers can pay for that in one of two ways. They can either mitigate and plant more trees on the property that they're building on. So they can replant trees on that property that they've just denuded of trees, or they can pay that dollar amount into a pot of money that will be established by the city. In fact, I think it is already established, and they can then that money will fund forestry projects in other parts of the city. So there's just one or two other things, and then I'm going to stop for questions. But the development community appeared at the first hearing about this in front of the Planning Commission in early December. And it was very heated, as you can imagine, or very passionate on both sides. And the topic was tabled until February 7th, and we were asked to go back to the drawing board, simplify the formula that we were working on, and make some other simplifications and modifications. The developers asked for and received credit for protecting stream buffers, which they're required to do by law. And they are also receiving credit for the landscaping trees that they put on the property, which are also governed by Kansas City ordinance. So there's a landscaping ordinance already in place that requires them to plant X number of trees. So they get credits for that and then credits for the stream buffer, but otherwise they have to pay or they have to plant. So I'll stop there. And well, let me say one other thing. I very much need your help. Anyone who is a tree champion themselves in their heart, either to be there on February 7th to swell the population of people who are in support of trees. And when we've done this before, we just stand up and, do like, we do jazz hands, like twinkling leaves overhead, just to let the city council know that there's a lot of people that think trees are a huge part of our city's beauty and its viability as a competitive city to live in. And certainly we all know on the Climate Protection Plan Committee how important it is as a mitigation strategy for climate change, because trees cool the city and really counter the heat island effect. So I would love to have people who were willing to actually testify. You can testify from the heart, whatever you want to say about trees, but I'd love to work with you in terms of making sure that we're not necessarily giving the same message over and over again. We can help shape your message a little bit, but love to have some of you who are listening on this call. And I'm going to type my email address into the chat and ask you to please reach out to me if you would be willing to attend and ideally to speak on the morning of February 7th. And we usually get rolling. I'm going to say by the time they finish with introductions, it's close to 9:30, but probably showing up there at about 9.
And
So
where is there exactly?
It is in the, Laura, is it on like 26 or 28 in City Hall? The Planning Commission?
I feel like it was in council
20
chambers last time, but I'm looking it up on the calendar right now. Give me just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen, you Kristen, you put an extra comma in your address.
I sure did. Sorry about that. bridgingthegap.org. Okay. So questions from anybody and everybody?
I'm not seeing it on the calendar yet, Kristen.
Okay.
Let me see if I can
Um,
pull up something on it.
it's the big room with the, it's the big room with the big seating, and I don't know what the name of it is. And it's higher up. It's like 22
Yeah,
or
that's
26th
council
floor.
chambers
council chambers. Okay.
26.
on 26th floor.
Sorry, Kristen, I might have gotten, this is Bridget, by the way. I might have gotten a little bit confused. So is this hearing about the funding mechanism, the like plant or pay mechanism, or is it about the entire master plan? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused about what the hearing is about.
This is just, thank you, Bridget. This is just about the ordinance. It's not, we're not going over the urban forest master plan. This ordinance came out of the urban forest master planning process. It was recognized that we don't have anything to protect our trees.
Okay.
And I failed to say one other thing, which is Patty Knoll, God bless her, who's been such a great partner on this, believes that we need to write a separate ordinance to address street trees, meaning the trees that are in the public right of way. So that there is going to be a different sort of governing process for those trees. So this is really designed to help try and protect mature forest stands where they still exist in the city. There's also an administrative regulation, which is an internal city internal regulation that does the same thing. And that passed about a year ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. No other questions? Then I'll say.
I was just going to ask one thing, Kristen. So I just want to make sure I got your numbers right. Did you say that each acre is about 150 caliper inch?
No, a mature stand of the standard for that is 300 caliper inches.
Okay.
For a complete, a densely forested area. But we are not asking the development community to bear the cost of that entire density.
Okay.
We're asking them to replace about 35% of it, which is 105 caliper inches. And the cost of that it is at $285 per caliper inch, and that
would be close to about $30,000 an acre then,
an
right?
acre, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So it does add up very, very quickly, and it's a difficult pill for them to swallow. And this is part of, in my mind, our kind of national and even international reassignment of the value of things based on what we now know about the importance of the natural world and its contribution to our human economies and all of that. I mean, these are things that have not had a value on them in the past, and now we're recognizing the value. And by the way, the value of Kansas City's forests, I think, was determined in about 2010 with Mid-America Regional Council. It's in the billions of dollars. All of the different eco benefits of our forests in terms of cleaning our air, sequestering carbon, cooling the city, habitat, stormwater retention, all of those things have a monetary value attached to them. And that's what we're trying to recognize with this ordinance.
Kristen, I mean, I would like to
Yes.
offer a motion that the committee endorse this ordinance, but it's in the works, so I'm not sure with the timing how that
I'm not either.
works.
City folk, what do you say about that? Can we endorse it if it's still in the process of being presented? I would think we can.
I think you can endorse it. You can choose to endorse it as it is going to the City Planning Commission, or you could choose to say it needs to be stronger. I mean, I think you could, even if you just endorse it for its value, and then, especially if you want to get something on the books, maybe, Kristen, do you know, it's going to go to the Planning Commission on the 7th, but
Right. I
there
don't
any
think a date
plans
has
on when
been
it's-
set. No,
for council.
not for
So,
city council.
you know, I think you could do it now, Robin, or you could make a motion on whether or not you want to endorse the final one, and then you could talk about it at the next meeting or pass stuff by email too.
Sorry, really fast. I'm going to hop in here. Robin, do we want to take questions from people sitting in the committee people, not committee people, community humans, or do we want to wait till the end?
I guess if we're going to vote on endorsing this, I guess if I would be fine if there's anyone in the from the community who would like to
Looks like we do
provide
have
a comment.
one hand raised from Karen. I know I've heard your
Annalise.
last name so many times. Yeah.
Don't worry about that last name. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, I have two questions. I thought that we were not allowed to speak up at a plan commission meeting. Was that bad information?
No, I think there, you can absolutely testify at a planning commission meeting.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm also wondering, like, where we have parcels of land that would fit this description. Where, I mean, it seems like you have to have quite a big parcel of trees to really get caught in this net. Where are those? Where are those places? Do you know, Kristen?
I know there are a lot of them in the Northland, but there are also there are parcels out in the south part of Kansas City as well. I mean, we have such a huge city that it sometimes obviously in the most densely populated parts of the city, like let's say the sort of, I don't know, 9th Street down to 119th, something like that, and maybe starting State Line over to, oh gosh, over to the Prospect, maybe even further east from that, because I think we still have a lot of population density. You're not going to have a lot of those mature, dense stands that are open for development because we also have a lot of parks already. But if you're going out to the less populated parts of the city, they're all over. But I would say there's particularly pronounced in the Northland. That said, let me say that a lot of Northland developers have showed up to comment on this ordinance. But the Northland also historically has had a lot of agricultural land, and their tree cover, in fact, isn't all that strong. When you look at the urban forest master plan, some of the Northland areas, districts 1 and 2, has some of the lower tree canopy coverage, but they still have stands of mature trees. So the answer is kind of the perimeters around the population, and they're everywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So let me just say once more that this is really, really important to keep this moving forward. This is going to be one of the ways by which we actually are going to be able to afford to plant more trees. I would also say that we looked at a lot of other cities, cities like, believe it or not, Fayetteville, Arkansas, because Bridging the Gap's forester used to be the forester for Fayetteville, Arkansas, and they have a very progressive tree ordinance. We looked at Portland, Oregon, and I would say this is in kind of the middle, if not even a little bit soft in terms of an ordinance, but it is a big hit for the development community. So we're trying to create a balance here. But your appearance would be super, super important. And I'm reading Tom's note right now. Maybe 20, 15-inch caliber trees on an acre proposed, and the developer might retain those trees and claim them regardless of the health of the trees. Is there a way to ensure that only healthy trees count? I'm glad you're asking this, Tom, because it reminds me to that there is actually a tree plan that will be done at the beginning of the proposed development. and the health of the tree will be looked at that, the health of the trees will be looked at that time. And if the trees are in poor condition, they will be potentially exempted. So good question.
I might
Okay,
put a couple of
Robin.
those in chat.
I guess, would it be helpful for the committee to take a position on the ordinance as it stands now for
I think
the
it
planning
would.
commission? Okay.
I think it would, and I think even more helpful would be a couple or even several people. Maybe I consulted with Billy Davies about this because we want to have a strong voice when we go in for the ordinance. And given how important trees are to our climate protection plans, I would really like to have a good showing from the committee. And I would like to be able to go in and say that we're in support of the ordinance as it stood on today's date.
Okay, then I guess I would make a motion to take a position of support for this ordinance.
I second that.
Okay, so all in favor of supporting this ordinance as it stands today, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And are there any opposed? Okay. Should we put that in writing for you, Kristen, or?
I don't think you need to,
Okay.
because I'm a member of the committee myself, and I can.
Okay.
I will take that responsibility, but thank you.
Okay.
I think if it's just in the minutes, we're good.
Great. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for giving us all that information, and we look forward to seeing how it goes on the 7th. And I will do my best to be there. Maybe we can get a couple others. We'll see. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is the Building Performance Standards Draft Resolution. Laura, could you give us a little background on that, please?
Sure. I'll give you a little background, and then Consuela McCain is also here. She's going to give just a short presentation on building performance standards for some folks that may not be familiar with the entire process. But just a little background, back in January of 2022, Mayor Quentin Lucas joined the Building Performance, National Building Performance Standards Coalition. It's a White House-based coalition of cities that are all looking to adopt some sort of building performance standard to help move climate action and health of buildings forward. And so after the mayor adopted this process, we were able to bring Consuela on as a Fuse Fellow to sort of help us with the background research and figuring out how to create an equity-based performance standard. And so we've been doing a lot of research. And finally, we're to the point where we think we're about ready to move forward with actually creating the standard itself and doing the doing some of the actual outreach for the policy. And so at this point, because it's, the mayor joined it a year ago, we want to make sure that the process is equitable. So what we're kind of bringing to you guys is kind of like when we did the climate protection and resiliency plan, we just brought forth a resolution to council to say, hey, we want to do this. This is why we're doing it, and this is how we want it done. So just to make sure that it's an equitable process and steps are followed so that we do get the outreach that we need and we do include community in the right places. It's good to have it in writing. So the resolution, the draft resolution, which is like very draft and by no means something that we are married to here. I sent to you all earlier today by email, so you can take a look at it and make comments as you will on that resolution. And then, yeah, I'm gonna let Consuela give a little presentation here on building performance standards, and then we can talk a little more about the resolution afterwards. You are muted, Consuela.
How about that?
Much better.
I think I can share my screen, so we're gonna see how this goes. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. You see the pretty part of it, right? That's what I want to make sure you can see that.
Yes, it's not the notes page.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we want to create an equity-centered building performance standards policy. So we have a few slides that will take you through. This also includes a very brief video to help bring folks all to the same page. All right, quick table of contents. And this presentation will be shared, so don't worry about trying to memorize everything that's in here.
And there is no sound with that. Marlene, I think there's something we have to do to get sound going in here, right?
Is it?
Sound going for Consuela's presentation.
For her video, yeah.
It looks great though.
Oops, so we still have no sound? All right, so we'll skip through for the essence of time. But when you get this presentation, I highly encourage you to just listen to the video. It's about 1.5 minutes, but it gives great early stages of what a building performance standard is. Basically, in a different format, here is some additional information about building performance standards. And what a building performance standard actually is, it's an outcome-based policy aimed at reducing the carbon impact from a built environment by requiring existing buildings to meet energy and or greenhouse gas emission-based performance targets over a period of time. This can be a great tool that provides a life cycle approach to building performance, and it can also empower our local leaders to deliver on energy and equity goals through accelerated retrofits and things like that. I am not going to read everything that's on the slide, but in the map, this just goes to show you we're the blue box third down from the top that says 70 to 95% reduction by 2030, or excuse me, by 2035 to 2050. So you can see other states that have, or other cities and states that are in the blue, they have the same reduction goals that Kansas City has in reducing our greenhouse gas and carbon footprint. So in this slide, we're talking about what goes into a building performance standards. And basically 4 or 5 things need to happen. We need to align and establish our goals, determine what our covered properties are, consider compliance approaches, provide support for building owners, whether that's commercial and multifamily, and then establish a reporting mechanism. So all of that is proposed in that draft resolution and what we propose moving forward. So there are things such in there such as conduct a building stock analysis, align BPS to properties covered by benchmarking ordinances. So making a connection to existing policies and ordinances that are already in play is basically what we're saying here. And lastly, existing BPS policy should consider factors such as financial hardships, capacity constraints, how the building is used, occupancy rates, and so on and so forth. Peer city data. So I just want to be clear. Peer City does not mean that they are exactly the same that we are in this instance, because I know we have a lot of folks on the line representing other entities, and so peer cities can sometimes be a stressed word. But in this instance, what we're referring to are cities that are moving along the same pathway that Kansas City is. So meaning that they have the same target goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70 to 95% between 2035 and 2050. So out of the 17 cities that fell into that, there are about 2, 4, 5 that are exactly the same as we are. And we've been in close conversation with those cities to learn best practices from them, what to do, what not to do, and how they are engaging with their communities in different aspects. Here we start to talk about building performance standards and climate equity, and then what that really means. We have twin goals when it comes to climate and when it comes to equity, still talking about building performance standards, but if we're not addressing the climate and the equity issue, then what are we doing? So here, climate change is expected to disproportionately affect low to moderate income communities at a rate that disproportionately affects all of those folks. But a strong plan could help us with that. So understanding what the community's priorities are, do no harm, and do some good in the process of that. And then here's another, just a different slide showing how building performance standards improve communities. They improve the quality of health, they create economic opportunities, and they create a resilience. And then the next 5 or 6 slides are all data maps. I highly encourage you to spend some time looking at these maps independent of today's meeting. So the first map that we're looking at, this is Kansas City. It's new, the 6 districts under their new district boundaries, but this shows socioeconomical vulnerability. It also shows the Messenet sites within our metropolitan area. And you can see here from this data that the greatest proportion of the folks that are affected through the socioeconomic vulnerability are districts 3, 4, and 5. And then this map, same as the last one, but it also shows asthma prevalence. And then you can see our districts here that are affected by that and the strong overlap in those. And then here, same map, we kept asthma, but we've also added COPD prevalence. And then here's the respiratory hazard quotient summary and the vulnerability to admissions, and same district outline. And again, you can see our heavy concentration of folks affected greatly by respiratory hazards are in districts 3, 4, and 5. And then that amount of population that is living 200% below the poverty level, you can see same districts are greatly impacted. So what are the potential equity opportunities of a building performance standard? Here, there's an opportunity for higher paying or living wage jobs. I'm sorry, there's an update that I need to make to this before we send it out, but also career pathways for historically underserved communities such as healthcare, construction, professional services, building services, so on and so forth. Another opportunity is amortized reduction in overhead for commercial buildings or housing and energy burden costs for larger buildings, and then increased health, safety, and resiliency benefits delivered to those who need them most. Potential equity risk. If we don't roll this plan out right, this policy, this opportunity, then we could inadvertently affect minority and women-owned subcontractors, that they won't receive the same opportunities that the majority firms do. It could freeze out minority workers. It could increase health and rental, housing and rental causes. It could cause tenant harassment or displacement. We could face a lack of community trust, buy-in, and support if we're not transparent through this process. And if we don't allocate resources right, we could run out of them sooner rather than later, before we've had an opportunity to effectively be good in this space. And why does Kansas City need a building performance standard? There's a quote by Mayor Lucas, and he says, "The climate crisis is among the most urgent issues that we face as a nation and as a world, and Kansas City is committed to building an equitable and climate resilient community for our future and for our children in all neighborhoods." So that's why we need it, along with the 3 bullet points that are listed here. But I think the greatest one that rung out to me is 2 and 3. The increase in emissions related to health issues, asthma, COPD, and other upper respiratory infections, but also the fact that 70% of our building stock produces GHG emissions, pollution. And then our last slide is our timeline, or our project timeline, and it just kind of shows where we are. So where we are today is that we've drafted a BPS resolution, and we would like your input on that resolution. And then the next thing is we will present it to the city manager and or city council. And those are next steps. And then we'll go to stakeholder engagement, and then we'll follow this continuum until we get to policy adoption next year. And let's see, how do I stop sharing my screen? Okay, I think I did it.
Thank
Questions,
you,
comments,
Consuela.
concerns?
Yeah, just if you don't mind to do just a little follow-up to that. So we have this ordinance in front of you to create an actual we have this resolution in front of you to create the actual policy that will then become an ordinance. So this is what this is very similar. We adopted the ICC 2021 energy codes, which are actually going to work on the emissions in our new buildings. But one of the things that kept being brought up during all of those hearings was, what about existing buildings? The existing buildings are the biggest part of the buildings. And in 2040, approximately 2/3 of the global building stock will be buildings that already exist today. So making sure that those buildings follow a trajectory to get down to a lower greenhouse gas emission is going to be huge. Also, this is strategy B-1.1 that was adopted as part of our climate plan. So yeah, when looking at this, I just want to make sure we're looking at, we know we need the policy. We just want to, this is more just making sure we do it right. So look at it through that lens as you guys are commenting on it as well. Turn back to you, Robin. Any questions or comments?
Kristen?
Well, my compliments to Consuela, and I just think this is hugely important, and I'm really glad that you're doing this work on it. And I feel like it's one of the leading ways that we can strike 2 blows at once. We can strike a blow for justice, and we can strike a blow for climate readiness and climate preparedness at the same time when we address this. I totally I think there is a very strong relationship between building performance and historic redlining, and not in a good way. And so this is, a really clear, strong way that we can address some of those historic wrongs. There's also a lot of data that's available about the energy burdens on households of color, which I think for average US households are like in 3.5% of disposable income, and they start in households of color at 9% and go up from there. And I think in some cities, it's, I think in Kansas City, it was 15% in some sections in 2016. So there's a whole bunch of data that shows that we're not doing very well on this front. And so it's, to me, that your work is very much needed, and I would be one to, when the time is right, to propose that we vote yes on this.
Thank you.
So I do have a question, Laura, because you had flagged it. Do we have an answer for houses or buildings, I guess, that exist already? Or did I completely skip that part? I know that you brought it up, but that was my biggest question this entire time.
Yeah, so what this is the answer to buildings that exist already. So yeah, what this is right now, we've been benchmarking. So Kansas City started benchmarking, gosh, back in 2014 in city buildings and 2015 for everyone else. So we've been benchmarking, and what we've been doing over that time is the building owners above 50,000 square feet have to report their energy and water usage data to us. The idea behind that was that they would see how they were doing. They would see how they were doing in comparison to their peers, and they would make change, especially if we offered incentives and the utilities offered incentives, and there were all these reasons for them to change. So we tried to do this on a voluntary basis. And what we're finding is that year over year, and our annual benchmarking report will be out soon. I apologize, it's a little late because Reagan started. Reagan didn't start till December, so we are working on that report now. But what we're finding is that it's not making a whole lot of difference by just having them benchmark. So what we're going to be doing through the development of the policy is figuring out what is the best solution. And so it's either going to be, they're going to have to reach a certain site EUI reduction. So energy use intensity of the site, they'll have to reduce it over time. Of course, this isn't going to be by 2025, you have to reduce it to zero. I mean, there's going to be a sliding scale over the next 7 to 10 years to get there. So it's either going to be a greenhouse gas reduction or a site EUI intensity reduction. And what that's going to look like, it's kind of like the tree ordinance. It's going to be based on our talks to community. How much are we going to ask for a reduction in order to meet our climate goals? And how many incentives is the city going to have to offer? Those kind of things are all going to be figured out over the next year in the process. So, but the solution is to implement the performance standard, which says by X date, your building has to be functioning at this level. And how you get there is going to be up to you, but you have to be there by a certain date. Did I answer your question, Bridget?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I read this a few hours ago and my brain's a little scrambled. So in the policy that we are talking about, supporting or not right now, is there a distinction between new and existing buildings, or is it just like all buildings need to hit this? No.
Sorry, do you want to talk? Consuela's got this.
Yeah.
So there is a distinction between new and existing. So BPS will cover the existing portfolio, and then we just adopted the IBCC codes to cover new construction.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, that's where I got a little confused. So thank you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the building size. What's the size that I guess is best practice? Is it 50,000 or is it dropped below that now?
So what we did here is we did the 50,000 for the benchmarking. And then that's the same thing that we'll start for BPS with the intent of downsizing every so often, whether that's 5 years or what have you, and then there's a program for folks that want to opt, or the intent is to have a program for businesses under our initial threshold that want to opt in early, because at some point we're going to get to them, if that makes sense.
So if there was a building smaller than 50,000 who wanted to get some assistance, if there is assistance available, then that could be an option or something you're looking at, or
that's something that's going to happen after we start doing the policy. So, Robin, part of it, section 4 in the resolution is to conduct that building stock and data analysis that identifies the addressable market buildings. So, And, you know, a lot of cities go with 50,000. Some of them go less than that. Some of them offer additional incentives if you are smaller than that, but you want to comply or you want to be an early adopter. So I think that's all going to be fleshed out over the next year.
Got it.
Once we
Okay.
get going.
Great.
Like Jerry has a question.
Yeah, thank you. Since you brought up the issue of incentives, even though they might be stair-stepped in some particular fashion, I would urge you to revisit the issue of penalties as well. So we have a spectrum of carrot and stick. The ordinance that exists now has penalties, but it's never been enforced. And I think that when you look at, as an example, of St. Louis, their implementation of their plan, of their benchmarking program, they did not increase their percentage. And I don't know, I don't know the exact specifics, or I don't remember them, but they increased their percentage of compliance when they started enforcing their disincentives. So if we're going to be dealing with incentives, I just would hope that you deal with the disincentives as well.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of cities that have already or adopted these or are working through them. No cities have actually been through the enforcement piece yet. They're just going through the first few years post adoption now. But a lot of them, there is very much a strong penalty for non-compliance, and then the funds from that penalty for non-compliance go to help the LMI building community to comply. So, I mean, that's kind of the model that a lot of folks are looking at. And yes, this will not work without a robust penalty system as well, because otherwise it'd just be easier to pay the fines than actually doing the work. And what we want is for them to do the work, realize the energy efficiency improvements, realize the air quality improvements, and realize the savings. So in the end, the ultimate goal is for them to win. That's a good question, Jerry. Did I miss anything, Consuela?
No, that was it. Thank you.
So are we taking a vote on, is this to the point where an endorsement, I'm sorry, I forgot where this is in the process.
Yeah, at this point, I think what we're looking for is, we're trying to do this we're trying to make sure that we set the stage, that we're checking all the boxes when we actually start building the ordinance, the BPS ordinance, that we're checking all the boxes to make it a very equitable process, and that we haven't missed anything of importance in our actually what we're asking of the city. So if you guys would like to, we would love to review it. We would love to have your comments, and then we can get you a final resolution, once those comments are incorporated to look at.
So you're not looking for, I mean, I guess, does anybody have any, I didn't have any suggested changes. Does anybody else? Or does anybody want more time to review it, or are we ready to just support it?
Consuela, I don't know if your data shows this, but there used to be facts about how quickly the housing stock actually turns over. And at one time it was like 3% per year. So it would take actually like 30 years or more for the new building code to come into be enacted upon, I guess. Do you have anything like that that would help people understand how slowly the housing stock turns over?
I don't, since this one is more so focused on commercial buildings and multifamily dwellings of a certain size, and not necessarily single family homes.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm not sure, that might have been all buildings, the 3% that I was thinking of, but.
Yeah, the whereas clause in this one that we have, Kristen, is the one that says in 2040, which is when our climate plan ends. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be climate neutral by 2040.
Mhm.
It says approximately 2/3 of the global building stock will be buildings that exist today. So
Right.
that's kind of the,
So that kind of does it. That's almost the same thing. Thank you.
So I guess the only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, because I think this is all great, but it's more towards Jerry's point, and Missouri, the state of Missouri's affinity for preemptions, and I don't know if there is, and this might have to be a legal question, and I am not that, obviously, but I don't know if there's some type of like verbiage that we could put into it about this penalty aspect that Missouri, this MoLedge out in Jefferson City can't come in and basically backtrack everything that we're working on here. And so I don't know if we have an answer for that obviously right now, but I just like wanted to flag that that's of course my biggest concern is preemption.
oh yeah. Well, and St. Louis already has developed their codes, their building performance standards. So, and they did it, you know, it was once they had approval from council, so the building community knew this was happening. They sat at the table and they figured it out together. And so that's the thing, if you figure it out with everyone at the table, hopefully we will have, you know, consensus with what goes out. I mean, that's the ultimate goal.
Mhm.
But definitely for the, when we're actually writing the ordinance, Bridget, we will definitely keep that in mind.
But this is just to kick off the process, right?
Correct.
So I guess
Correct.
I thought that you were looking for us to take a position on it today so that the process could get kicked off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're okay with it and you want to kick off the process, I don't know if you want to take it and run with it, or we can run it up through the city manager. It would be great to have your blessing that, yes, we want to start this process, and this is everything you've said in here is exactly what we need to do to start it correctly. Yes, that's what we're looking for from you guys.
Okay.
And I don't know, you can either, if you want to do an endorsement email, if you want to, I don't know how you want to do that. I guess we can, or if you
Well,
guys want to run with it.
is there any other discussion on it? Or, I mean, I would make a motion to support it as it is, unless anyone had any further comments or wanted more time to review it.
Robin, I'll second your motion.
I'll third it.
All right. All right. So
Yeah,
go ahead, Bo.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, I like the spirit of it. I don't know if there's any changes that be made. I mean, I guess we can go through the process, but I like the spirit of it really. I think it's really strong.
Okay. Well, then, all in favor of supporting the resolution for building performance standards, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so so motion passes and we support this ordinance and can talk more about how to help move it forward offline.
Wonderful. Thank
So.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on then, Laura, we've got the OEQ update and we're running a little low on time, but I think that's the bulk of the rest of the meeting, so I'll hand it over to you. So
There's a lot of updates. So I can make this as fast as possible though. So I will start with the Solarize KC update. That's the first thing on the list. So the enrollment period ended in October. We had a total of 657 people sign up to get solar bids. I was one of those that signed up, but sadly could not get solar. I don't have the roof for it. So at the end of December, there was the actual cutoff then for contracting. So out of those people that signed up for bids, they got their bids back. And then if they wanted to actually be part of the program, they had to contract by the end of December. And so what we ended up with was just a little over 100 residential contracts in place through the Metro, which totals about 722 kilowatts of solar. We had hoped we were going for a megawatt, but we got pretty close. I mean, if you round up, we're there. So we got pretty close for our first Solarize campaign. And I do say our first because I think we're going to do this again. But
Could you repeat that number one more time?
Sure. I don't have the exact, so out of 657 that signed up for bids, we have just over 100 residential contracts in place. I don't have the exact number from Andy. I just have the just over 100. So,
And megawatts?
Oh, it's 722 kilowatts of solar total is what
Okay.
we're going to install.
Thanks. Okay.
And so installations actually started last month. They're going to continue through June of 2023. There is a process to actually get it solar on your roof. So, and we've put a lot on our codes folks at once. And so it's going to be a little bit before we get through that. But the next step then is the low income piece of this. So there was an LMI piece, low moderate income, called Share the Sun. And during that, the city put seed money into a fund, and then that fund was expected to grow through charitable donations to help LMI families get solar. And so the city put in 150K into that fund, and we ended up with an additional $20,000 in donations. So to help families. And the way we did this was the households were already vetted to be solar ready because we know there's often a lot of things that have to be accomplished in some of these households before you could actually put a solar panel on the roof. But through the work done by Jerusalem Farms, I think Adam is here, so thank you for your help on that. And Westside Housing, they had already vetted these homes to be solar ready through their energy efficiency programs. So with this money, with the original city budget of 150K, we were looking at covering about 15 families with 4 kilowatt systems. The additional 20,000 can add another 1 or 2 families to the list on that. And those 4 kilowatt systems are expected to offset about half of their electric bill, which is a pretty cool thing. And those installations are expected to start this spring, later in the spring. For those. So yeah, I want to thank you for all the partners here that helped with that process. It's been a long process, but I think it's kind of been a fun one. I look forward to us doing more with this. And I know Jerusalem Farms is already going for some grants to do more on this, which is awesome. Okay, next update. Anybody have any questions on Solarize, Casey?
You did have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Angela,
I think Jerry was first.
Oh,
okay. In terms of the next phases of Solarize KC, has there been any? I know I'm hoping there's been some planning for that, some initial planning for that. Has there been any discussion, if that's occurred, about tying in the solar panels, the solar collection system to EV charging stations in the individual houses?
I can tell you, that's a good question. I do not believe we've started our planning on the second piece yet. I think the idea is to get through the entire process so we can iron out all the bugs from start to finish.
Then just consider that a request.
Yes. Okay. We can definitely add that to make sure that that is a request because there's going to be funding coming down for that. Yes, Angela.
Did you say this was just residential so far, or nothing commercial?
Yeah, there was a commercial component to this. I don't believe that we actually have any commercial contracts as of yet, and I'm not sure if those ended in December as well, or if there was a little more time on that. I know one of the big ones we were looking at was the library was super excited about it, but they weren't able to make the timing and the funding work on it. So yeah, I'm not sure where we are commercial.
So I submitted for our organization. I never heard anything back.
Oh, really?
And so I don't know if maybe it got caught in spam or who I should have heard from. But so I've just been telling people I haven't heard anything, when they've asked me about it. So I was just curious if that was a different timeline or what that looked like on the commercial side.
That would be a good question for Andy. If you're okay with dropping that in an email, So he's the one that's been taking up the burden on this one. So.
Okay.
Yes, Bo.
So to kind of let you guys know though too, several of our contractors, we've been doing this for, gosh, almost 20 years now, do both EV and solar voltaic. So we've been, in fact, our hall has solar panels we've installed since on 2010. So we've been kind of in this renewable energy for quite a while. So a lot of, in fact, the EV charging stations are being put in by a lot of our local contractors here in the IBW. So it might be something to explore and look into in the future.
Yeah, I think definitely, especially as the need for jobs in this field grow, that's going to be huge. So stay in touch with you on that. Okay. All right, the next thing on my list was just an update on the airport solar. An RFP was issued several months ago for solar up at the airport. The project is looking at spanning 3 or 4 phases. In the end, if we actually developed all 4 phases, we could cover about 70,000 homes in Kansas City with the solar farm at the airport. So those were originally due in early January, but the city has delayed the RFP process to give developers more time to put their proposals together. I believe the new date for those proposals to be due is February 10th. In the meantime, the city has put together a selection committee, and they're also getting some technical guidance from NREL on this process as well. So Andy is on that selection committee, so I'm sure he will be giving us updates as he has them once they get that moving. I think that's where we all are right now, is just waiting on those proposals to come in. Anything else on the airport solar? Okay. Moving on, just a little update on the 2021 ICC energy codes. So those were adopted in October of last year. So they're set to go into effect July of this year. That means any permits pulled starting July 1 will be under the new energy codes. And our office has been working with the codes team and the planning department through the process. To kind of get through some of the various issues that we are going to have as a city to make this happen. So I know there's going to be a lot of in-house training needed. We're going to need at least 4 more staff to make this work. And we have to kind of develop the permitting program internally. Most of the work is falling on city planning, but we're trying to ease the burden where we can. And so right now there's meetings with internal staff first. Once we get our implementation plan completely finalized, we'll be meeting with the other city departments that'll be affected by this. And then we're looking, once we have the other city departments up to speed, we'll be working with our external stakeholders starting in the spring. So we're thinking March or April. And at that point, we will vet the ideas that we have against what they deal with on the public or the private side of this to get additional feedback on the program. And at that time, we'll also be reaching out to some of the folks that are in this room right now that were instrumental in getting that the codes across the finish line to make sure that they are at the table as well as we draft this up so that we have a really robust code in the end. I know at this point, funding is a really big issue. And so we are working on possible funding, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the grant process. So any questions on the energy codes for now? And I'm going to hurry faster. Next thing coming up really big is the budget. So our budget request has been submitted. It includes the funding we already have on the books here in OEQ. But we also asked for 2 more positions to provide some succession planning in the office and to get some additional assistance in some of the big areas of climate action that take a lot of coordination with other departments. And that's our natural systems area and the homes and buildings. So we've asked for a staff person to assist in both of those areas. Kansas City is actually fiscally in a pretty good place right now this year. So there is a chance that some of the additional budget package requests coming from city departments will be accepted. I'm not, we don't know for sure how much they're going to accept, but what we're going to be looking at is the budget hearings, which most people here are familiar with. They're going to be starting up in mid-February through mid-March. Just keep a lookout for that when they start doing the hearings. I know they like to do them in person, but they sometimes do them virtual as well. And then, of course, feel free to show up at the hearings to support climate action however you see fit in the city. We're definitely excited to have a little bit of wiggle room in the budget this year. Next piece I just wanted to let everyone know about was this LED streetlight conversion. So the streetlight conversion is well underway at this point, but I can't remember if we talked about it in the last meeting or not, but there is a LED streetlight conversion map that I just put in chat. For anybody that's interested, it actually shows all of the 90,000 streetlights that we are converting. We did start those conversions earlier, actually at the end of 2022, but they're going to be going on for quite a few years. So you can look there and see when your streetlights will be converted through this ArcGIS map that's here. If your streetlight is not in a color that shows that it's in the conversion process, you can actually click on it and it will tell you the date at which the streetlight will start to be replaced when they'll start looking at those particular streetlights. That is all of the updates on things happening. The next piece I have is kind of the grants piece we're looking at, but it's getting pretty close to 5. So I don't know what you'd like me to run a quick through what we've got and what we're looking at. What do you think, Robin? Or do you want to go ahead?
Why don't we see first if there's any public comments? If that's okay, Laura?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to make sure everybody who came has a chance to give their comment if they have one. So, or they're welcome to put it in the chat. If anybody has any public comment, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing anyone at the moment. So I guess go ahead, Laura. I also was going to talk about our meeting calendar, but we'll just do that real quick at the end. So if you want to go through any grants to give everyone an update, that'd be great.
I will see if I can do this in under 2 minutes. Okay, first up, EECGB funding. The city has a formula grant for energy efficiency community block grants. We're going to get about $477,000 as of January 18th. Finally, those program applications are live. So I'll put in chat for the CPSC to look at that if they'd like, just kind of the eligible uses on that. I am meeting with the mayor's office later this week to discuss priorities and other funding issues so we can figure out where it's best to spend our funding. IRA updates. So the Inflation Reduction Act, just real quick, the tax rebates available to homeowners began January 1st. So for any community partners, that is going to be a big piece to look into, and something the city's going to have to start promoting with its partners really well to get those. There's a lot of money available for a lot of rebates. So, and I also am going to put, it's from a guy that's in the House, I think in Connecticut, but he has a really good breakdown. So I put in Heim's particular breakdown on, it's a good one for homeowners that breaks it down really easily. Kansas City also has 2 Department of Economic Development grant proposals out right now. One with Bridging the Gap to help with energy efficiency in small apartment buildings. Another to help with energy efficiency for houses that are dealing with long-term issues from COVID. We also recently received a technical assistance grant from the American Society for an Energy Efficiency, or I'm sorry, American Coalition for an Energy Efficient Economy. I don't know, ACEEE. And they are giving us a technical assistance grant. They're giving us 100 hours of their staff time to help us develop our energy efficiency program for homeowners, which is going to help us drive our equitable building decarbonization plan, as well as give us insight into how to best leverage our varying efficiency efforts. So that minor home repair, healthy homes funding, and our energy efficiency money. I can give you more information on that, guys, offline if you want. And then we have trees grants. So we have a civic grant right now working with 3 other cities to figure out some of the barriers to implementing trees. It is a National Science Foundation grant. So we're currently in the $50,000 planning grant. And in March, we'll be submitting our final grant for the $1 million that will be put between each city to actually help implement. We have $5 million of Missouri Department of Natural Resources stormwater grant funding to do restoration along the Blue River. That's being held out of parks. And then we also have several other trees grants in process. So that's the quick rundown on where we are in grants right now.
Thanks, Laura.
5 now, so you want to do your.
Bridget, did you want to mention any other?
Oh, yeah, just
Transfer
really
quick.
quick, Laura, I get, and I've been sending them to you. There's like just a whole bunch of funding that's coming down the pipeline from IRA and the IIJA with regards to the ports program, clean heavy duty vehicles, which I think is less so city oriented, but definitely the ports program is getting a lot of funding that's coming up. A lot of environmental justice programs as well are getting funding as well. So I'll just keep sending them your way until you get annoyed with me.
No, that's okay. And one thing I did want to say is I'm also doing this with I gave this in the EMC. We have so little staff to hold so many grants. So if you are a community partner or you know a community partner that's going for a grant, I am more than happy to sign on as a partner or host. We're more than happy to host a staff person if they ask for it as part of the grant, all those kind of things. But we're running low on our bandwidth on what we can hold in OEQ.
Right, makes sense.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Laura. I know we are at time, a little over time. I just wanted to throw out and try to get all of our meetings on the calendar for this year for everyone's awareness. So I was going to propose that we keep our meetings to the same day, generally the third Monday each month from 3:30 to 5. There's a couple times where we need to move them due to national holidays. But if, I guess I wanted to put that out for discussion. Does anybody have any other suggestions that's different than that?
I think it's wise to just keep the same time, just because for community engagement.
Okay. So, oh, go ahead. No? Okay.
Oh, no, I'm just gonna say, I guess so many meetings, just go ahead and schedule for org.
Okay. So I'll have OEQ just get all of them on the calendar for the year then. That was really all I wanted to say about that.
This February one is one it falls on President's Day, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
Do you want to move it before or after?
Oh, I was thinking after. Thank you. That's the first one is our next one. So we need to figure that out. So I was thinking the following Monday, which I think is the 27th.
Yeah.
And for that one, I believe I'd like to suggest we have the discussion around, the budget will be out, the draft budget will be out by then. So I was hoping we could talk about that. And I believe you're going to have Vicinity Energy possibly come give a presentation. Okay.
They're interested in presenting on their sustainability and their electrification plans.
Great. So, okay. Well, then we'll get that out to everybody. And any other business before we adjourn?
Hey, Robin, maybe just real quickly, I just wanted to note that Evergy, we were building a 10 megawatt solar array at the Hawthorne power plant that has been completed and is in service. That started just about a couple weeks ago. So that's 10 megawatts, 5 megawatts of it will be for solar subscription. So roughly we have about 2,000 customers that are already signed up for that and a couple hundred more already on the waiting list. So it's very positive. Then there's another 1 megawatt that will be used for what we're calling low income solar subscription. And so we're currently, kind of marketing that, if you will, and taking applications for that. And that will accommodate roughly 250 customers.
Is there a link for that
Yes.
program? You could put that in the chat. And then Laura, if you wouldn't mind sending me the chat so I can help share some of this around. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I want to respect everybody's time and go ahead and adjourn for today. So we will reconvene on February 27th at 3:30. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Have a
Good night,
good
everyone.
evening. All right, bye-bye.